Hello, everybody. How are you all doing today? Again, my name is Morgan, for those of you who have been coming to some of the webinars that I've been doing. When you enter the class, just make sure to say hello, okay? All right. So I hope everybody has had a good weekend, a good week. It is Tuesday, and I hope you guys can still keep track of what day it is. I know with the quarantine, it's been a little difficult for me to remember when Friday is or when Saturday is, especially in the middle of the week. All right. Well, today we're going to be talking a little bit about food just before lunchtime. So I hope you guys are ready. Okay. So in this focus activity, we're going to be talking about adverbs of frequency, which say how often we do something. We're going to talk about food and the different categories it goes in. And we're going to talk about our eating habits. If you are ready, we're going to start with our adverbs of frequency. Okay, so I see we have two people in the room. Say hello when you enter. This way we can have a good class together. All right, so let's talk about our adverbs of frequency. We have here never, sometimes, usually, often, always, and hardly ever. Do you think you can put these adverbs of frequency in the correct order? So let's start with never. So I never do something. What would come after never? Usually, often, sometimes. What would come after never? Okay, so after never, we're going to start with always. So starting with always, my apologies. So always means we do something 100% of the time. Okay, for example, I always brush my teeth before and after breakfast, but I always brush my teeth. Okay, so after always, we have usually. So I usually. After usually, we have often. Okay, can you guys guess what comes next? We have 4 people that have entered. What comes next? What comes after often? Oh, welcome back. Okay, well done. So always, usually, often, sometimes, hardly, ever, and never. Well done. Okay, so yes, after often, we have sometimes, and hardly ever, and never. So I like to think about our frequency adverbs with a percentage. For example, if I always do something, I do it 100% of the time. Always. Okay. I write this out for you. 100% of the time. If I usually do something, I do it maybe 80% of the time, maybe 85. Hi, Paolo. Okay, so we'll say 80% of the time. Okay, often, I do something often. I would say more about 50% of the time. Sometimes, what do you think? What percentage should we give sometimes? I think maybe we could say, I sometimes, 40%. Do 30%, 30% of the time. Okay, I hardly ever. We could say about 15% of the time. And I never. 0%. Okay, good. Okay, Paolo, yes, hardly ever, 10%. We can say about 10 to 15%. Okay, good job, you guys. Hello, everybody. So, hello, Paolo. Hello, Miss Romano. I'm always going to mess up your name. And we have two other people. Hopefully they will join in the conversation. So I want you to think of a few things. For example, I sometimes eat biscuits for breakfast. For breakfast. Great job, though. Okay, so I sometimes eat biscuits for breakfast. Now, I always have coffee in the morning. I always have a coffee in the morning. Without my coffee, I'm very cranky. Okay. I usually eat fruit for breakfast. Usually. I often have pasta for lunch. I sometimes eat cookies. So cookies would be another way to say biscuits. So in the UK, they're called biscuits, but in America, they are called cookies. Okay. Let's see here. I hardly ever, well, in these days, I hardly ever work out. Shh, don't tell anyone. And I never smoke. Hello, Fiorella. I hardly ever eat fruit for breakfast. Okay, Celia? Fruit for breakfast. Okay, good. Oh, I want to know, what is something you always do? Great job, Ami. Welcome back. What is something you always do? Who can tell me something you always do? All right, I never go skiing. Good. Also very good spelling. But what is something we always do? For example, I always have a coffee with breakfast. I always drink a coffee with breakfast. What do you guys always do? Okay, and after you answer that one, we're going to go on to our next one. I usually, we had a good one from Ami. I usually eat vegetables for lunch. So without the Ami, I always take my shower. Okay, we would say I always take a shower. I always take a shower. Great job. You said before, I always have a coffee. In this cup, yes. So perfect question, Fiorella. In English, we don't take a coffee, we have a coffee. So I'm going to go to the bar and have a coffee. Okay. Well done, though. Good question. Okay, good. Paolo, I usually have breakfast on the balcony. So here we are missing the article. So I usually have breakfast on the balcony or on my balcony. So Fiorella, we cannot use the word take when we talk about coffee. Okay. So I'm going to have a drink. I'm going to have a shower or take a shower. But when it comes to coffee and drinks, we don't take it. Okay. Unless you're saying, I'm going to go pick it up and bring it to my table, in which you took the coffee. Okay. But when we talk about drinking a coffee, it's having a coffee. Okay. I hope that was a good explanation for you. Let me know if you need any more. All right. So let's go on. And I want to know, what is something you sometimes do? You sometimes. For example, I sometimes, what is it that I sometimes do? I sometimes study outside. Sometimes I study outside. Okay, what about you guys? What is it that you sometimes do? Let's see if I can think of another one. I sometimes eat meat for dinner. Sometimes, usually for lunch. Okay, so I'll let you guys respond. I think there's a little bit of a drag on the chat box. But let's go on to the next one. Hardly ever. So I hardly ever drink coffee at night. Hardly ever. Okay, so that means that 10 to 15% of the time, I do drink a coffee at night. Usually only if I study. I always have the coffee when I get up. Okay, so good. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So, yeah, we can say I always have a coffee. Okay. So not the, but a coffee. When I get up, let's read some of the other ones. I sometimes going to the cinema. Very close. When we talk about something that we sometimes do, we use the infinitive. We don't use the gerund. So I sometimes go to the cinema. Okay. So here we want to make sure to use the bare infinitive. I sometimes go to the cinema. This is for Paolo. Okay, great job. I hardly ever. Okay, so we have a good example of another one. Paolo, so I hardly ever eating vegetables. How could we change that sentence to be in the correct form? So remember, we want to use the bare infinitive. So I hardly ever. How can we change the sentence? I'm gonna wait to see if you can do it. Okay, and let's go on to never. So we had a few good ones, but I'm going to say I never smoke. I never smoke. What about you guys? What is it that you never do? I hardly ever eat vegetables. Well done. Yes, Paolo, that's perfect. Okay. So, what is it that we never do? So, I can say I never go to the shopping. Close. Okay. So, I never go shopping. I never go shopping. So, we would say to the when it's a place. For example, I never go to the cinema. But when we're talking about an action like shopping, we would just say go shopping. Okay? So great job. Celia got it. I sometimes go shopping. Paolo, your sentence would be I never go shopping. I never go skiing. Okay? So it's a little bit different if we're using verbs or nouns. All right. So hopefully everyone is ready. We're going to go on to the next page. If you have any more questions, just write me. We're going to do I never try skinning. Okay. All right. So hold on, we have a few good ones coming in. So Celia, I hardly ever drink beer. I hardly ever drink beer. So this is a little bit different. I hardly ever drink beer. And Ami, I'm not really sure. I think maybe you wanted to say skiing. Yes, perfect, Paolo. I never drink wine. Perfect. Well done, everybody. Okay, so Ami, I think you're trying to say I have never tried skiing. This is a different tense. A different tense. We would be using the present perfect. Okay, so let's go forward. And here we can see a lot of food, and a lot of drinks. Now, I would like for you guys to read through this list with me and see if you can find all of the drinks, fruits, vegetables, or other items. Okay? Okay. So let's see if you can put these into their proper categories. So let's read through them together. We have eggs, tomatoes, onions, cheese, juice, potatoes, coffee, apples, tea, chocolate, bread, beans, and pasta. So let's take a look. We have a few people that have responded. For drinks, we have juice, coffee, tea. Good. Okay. All right. We have eggs, other tomatoes, vegetables, and onions. Okay, so eggs goes in the pile of other, tomatoes, vegetables, onions, vegetables. Okay, great. So let's take a look. Eggs. Eggs. Ami says eggs go in the other category, which is correct. We have tomatoes. Now, this is a little tricky. Tomatoes have seeds, and anything with a seed is considered a fruit. So tomatoes are fruits. Okay. Now here we have onions, and onions have no seed. So onions would be considered a vegetable. All right. What about cheese, you guys? Has anybody responded with cheese? I don't see anything yet. So cheese, that's not a drink, definitely not a fruit, not a vegetable. So cheese would be in other. Great job, Fiorella. All right, juice under our drink category. Potatoes, where are potatoes? Vegetables, great job, Fiorella. Coffee, drinks, apples, good job, everybody. It's a fruit. Tea is a drink. Chocolate is other. Good. Bread, other. Where are beans? Who got beans? Oh, Fiorella did. Fiorella. Beans would be under the vegetable, and pasta, other. So, good job, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about some of the foods that we might eat for breakfast. Now, I know in Italy, it's normal that you eat sweets for breakfast. Okay. But for me, it's not so normal. We don't usually eat sweets for breakfast. We usually eat savory foods. Savory foods. So not salty foods, but savory. Okay. So let's think. My favorite breakfast foods. I like eggs and avocado and toast. And sometimes I really like bagels and cream cheese for breakfast. One of my favorite foods from back home. Now, what about you guys? What are your normal breakfast foods? What do you eat for breakfast? I'll give you a minute to respond. It appears we're still on the last page. Okay, so what do you eat for breakfast? So like I said, I usually eat fruit for breakfast, but I also like to eat sometimes eggs and toast and avocado. Okay. So, Paolo, I usually eat bread with marmalade and orange juice. Oh, wow. That sounds really good right now. Okay, great job, Paolo. Fiorella, for breakfast, I usually eat some white bread with butter and jam with green tea. I like fruit too. Well done, you guys. And unexpected, I didn't think there would be so many toast eaters. So when we heat the bread, we call it toast. Okay, Ami, in my breakfast, I eat fruit salad. I have a coffee with cookies. That's a big breakfast. Okay, great job. All right, and Ami, we wouldn't say in my breakfast, but we would say for my breakfast, or my breakfast, or for breakfast. So either would be okay. On holiday, I eat eggs and bacon. Okay. Paolo, I can't remember the last time I had eggs and bacon. It's been a long time. Okay, I can tell you every Sunday I eat pancakes. Every Sunday I eat pancakes. Okay, good. So let's take a look here and we're going to do a little bit of practice. So, what do you usually eat for breakfast? For breakfast, I usually eat fruit and yogurt. What do you usually drink for breakfast? For breakfast, I usually drink tea. Sometimes I drink juice. I never drink coffee. So this is the opposite for me. For breakfast, I usually drink coffee. I sometimes drink tea. And I never drink juice. Every weekend, I make a cake for breakfast. Oh, amazing. Great job. So remember, we want to use a cake. And yes, Paolo, I only drink Italian coffee. I don't like water in my coffee. But even when I lived in the United States, I didn't like watery coffee. Okay, so let's take a look here. Celia, I want you to try and fix this sentence. So is milk a food or a beverage? A food or a beverage? So I eat milk and coffee with biscuits or pancakes for breakfast. So when we speak about something generally, we usually speak about it plural. Okay, for example, I always eat pancakes on Sunday. Okay. Thank you, Paolo. So, Fiorella, I usually drink coffee or I usually have a coffee is the same. Yes. Fiorella, both of those are acceptable, okay? So I usually drink coffee or I usually have a coffee, okay? Remember, if we say drink, there's no a before coffee. And if I say have, there is the article a before coffee. For breakfast, I usually eat fruit salad and sometimes I make an omelet. Sometimes I make an omelet, Ami. Okay, so here we have a noun that starts with a vowel, an O. So what are our vowels? We have A, E, I, O, U. Okay, so when we have a noun that starts with one of these vowels, our A turns into an. So we use the article an. It's much like the rule in Italian. Okay, I never have tea. Okay, good. All right, you guys. So let's see here. I'm going to try and make my sentence. So, what do I usually eat for breakfast? For breakfast, I usually eat fruit. I never eat yogurt. And I usually drink coffee for breakfast. I sometimes drink tea. And I never drink juice. Okay, so let's go on. And we're going to talk about lunch now. So we've had some good practice with breakfast, but now let's see if we can do it for lunch. So, what time do you usually eat lunch? I want you guys to send me your responses. What time do you usually eat lunch? Now, I usually eat lunch at 1 p.m. Usually. Sometimes I eat lunch at 2 p.m. What time do you usually eat lunch? Okay, while you guys send in your responses, I'm going to continue. So, what do you usually eat for lunch? I told you guys, I usually eat pasta for lunch. Sometimes I eat salad and meat for lunch. I never eat cake for lunch. I want to, but I never do. Okay, so what do you usually eat for lunch? Now let's go on to the next one. Who do you eat lunch with? Who do you eat lunch with? Well, I often eat lunch alone because I'm at work, but during the quarantine, let's change that. I always eat lunch with my boyfriend. All right, let's see some of your responses. When I do sports, I have lunch at 2 p.m. Okay. So, Paolo, remember if you're talking about doing exercise, we would say when I work out or when I exercise. I usually have lunch at 2 p.m. For lunch, I usually eat white rice with chicken and vegetable salad. That actually sounds very good today. Okay. I usually eat alone. And okay, so we could change this sentence a little bit, Paolo. So I usually eat a sandwich and I usually eat alone or by myself. I usually eat lunch at 1:30. I always eat salad with tomatoes and tuna and eggs. Okay. I often I often have lunch with my flatmate. So remember to have or to eat. So you could say, I often have lunch with my flatmate, or I often eat lunch with my flatmate. Okay, good. So, Fiorella, if we're saying I usually have lunch at 1 o'clock, we don't need to say PM because we know that it's lunchtime and it's at 1 o'clock. It wouldn't make sense if it was 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so we could just say, I usually have lunch at 1 o'clock alone, alone. Okay, but now I eat lunch with my family. Oh, that's nice though. All right, you guys, pretty good. So let's take a look here at the next page. And we are going to do the same thing, but dinner. So, what do you eat for dinner? So, we're going to start with what time do you usually eat dinner? Now, usually I eat dinner at 7:30 p.m. or 7:30 at night. Sometimes I eat dinner at 9 p.m. or 9 o'clock at night. Okay, what time do you all eat dinner? What time do you eat dinner? I like to eat dinner early. This way I don't go to bed with a full tummy, a full stomach. What time do you like to eat dinner? Okay. I usually eat lunch at 1 p.m. All right, good. I think 1 p.m. is pretty normal. Now, in America, we usually eat lunch at 12 p.m. 12 p.m. is a normal lunch time. Okay. Well, while you guys write your responses, we're going to go down to the next question. What do you usually eat for dinner? Now, I usually eat vegetables and sometimes meat. But for dinner, I prefer vegetables. Okay. I hardly ever eat pasta for dinner. Hardly ever. Because I don't like eating pasta for dinner. Okay, good job. So I usually eat pasta with vegetables for lunch. Yum. And I usually eat alone. Okay. For dinner, I often try to eat something light like soup, vegetables, etc. Fiorella, me as well. I do as well. Okay. What about you, Paolo? And Ami, what do you eat for dinner? What time do you eat dinner? Okay, I usually eat dinner at 8:30. Sometimes I eat a soup and beef steak. Okay. I often eat dinner with my flatmates. Okay. Okay, good job. I usually eat dinner at 8 p.m. I sometimes, watch your spelling, Paolo. I sometimes eat meat with vegetables. I always drink a glass of wine. Oh, I'm jealous. Okay. I don't have any wine in my house, so I have to wait until the quarantine is over. Okay. And who do you normally eat dinner with? You can say, I normally or usually eat dinner with my boyfriend. Okay. I sometimes eat dinner with my flatmates. Who do you guys eat dinner with? I think when the quarantine is over, I'd like to have a big dinner with all of my friends. I think that will be the first thing that I do, a big, long dinner with lots of wine. Now that Paolo has told me about wine, I can't stop thinking about it. We're going to have meat, vegetables, and lots of wine. I usually eat with my family. Okay, very good. All right. So I think we all eat at about the same time. Most of us have dinner at 8 p.m. Okay. Now, even with the quarantine, do you guys eat dinner at 8 p.m. even with the quarantine? Or has your eating schedule changed a little bit? For example, I eat breakfast at the same time. Nope, my schedule hasn't changed for eating. I still have breakfast at 7 in the morning, and lunch at 1, and dinner at 8. Okay. So while you guys finish writing in your responses, we are going to go on to the next page. And we're going to discuss our eating habits. Now, we've talked about which foods we eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We're going to do a little bit of a repeat to practice. For example, what foods do you usually eat for breakfast? For breakfast, I usually eat fruit and yogurt. What do you usually drink for breakfast? For breakfast, I usually drink tea. Okay, so for dinner, I usually eat fish and a salad. But you guys are so healthy. Okay, good, Paolo. You're practicing our class from what yesterday. Was it yesterday? Our family lesson. Okay. So, we're going to do a little bit more practice. I want you guys to say it with me. What do you usually eat for breakfast? So again, for breakfast, I usually eat fruit. I never eat yogurt. And I sometimes eat cookies. Sometimes. For breakfast, I usually drink coffee. I sometimes drink tea. And I never drink juice. So I want you to type it all together for me if you guys are sending in your answers. Okay, and we're going to practice the last parts. So when do you usually eat? I usually eat breakfast at 7 a.m. I sometimes eat breakfast at 8 a.m. And let me think. I usually have lunch at 1 p.m. I sometimes have lunch at 2 p.m. And for dinner, I usually eat dinner at 7:30 p.m. I hardly ever eat dinner at 9 p.m. So send me your responses and let's see how you do. For breakfast, I usually drink orange juice and then a coffee. Okay, good. Remember your spelling, okay, Paolo? So coffee should have 2 E's and orange juice should be 2 words. Fiorella, for breakfast, I usually eat some bread. I always drink green tea. I never drink coffee and I never eat vegetables in the morning. Great job. Wonderful, everybody. Okay. For breakfast, I usually eat fruit salad and sometimes I have a coffee. You guys are fantastic. Okay, so well done. Let's go on to the last page. And we are going to wrap up our class by speculating. Now, to speculate means to guess or to wonder. For instance, picture A. Now, I can see a hamburger and soda he's eating. So I could say, I think he usually eats chocolate for breakfast. I think he usually drinks cola for dinner. Okay, I could also say, I think he usually eats unhealthy foods. Okay, remember, healthy means it's good for you, and unhealthy means it's bad for you. For example, butter would be considered unhealthy, but salad would be considered healthy. Okay, good job, Ami. I sometimes eat breakfast at 9 p.m., but I think you mean 9 a.m. 9 p.m. is in the evening. That would be a big change. So tell me, picture A. Let's do some speculating. What do you think he usually eats for breakfast? Okay, remember, Ami, when we have a noun that starts with what kind of a letter is H? Is it a vowel or is it a consonant? So we wouldn't say an hamburger because H is not a vowel. We would say a hamburger, okay? Because H is a consonant. So I think he eats a hamburger with Coca-Cola. Okay, hopefully not for breakfast. All right, Paolo. Okay, Paolo, I love red wine. I really, really love Syrah. And I do like Chianti sometimes. And I only eat meat sometimes. I don't usually eat meat. I prefer fruits and vegetables and fish. Okay, so you guys, well done. We're going to hopefully get a few more responses in. We have about 2 minutes left of class. So let's look at all 3 pictures, A, B, and C. And I want you to tell me, what do they usually eat? Or especially picture C. Do you think she gets to eat very often? let's do some speculating about picture C and B. So for example, picture B, I think I could speculate, I could guess. Picture B, I think she usually eats healthy food. Healthy food. Remember, healthy food is good for you. What kind of healthy food do you think she normally eats? A, I think he hardly ever drinks water for lunch. Okay. All right, that's a pretty good guess, Fiorella. Today I eat tuna. I eat tuna, not tono, but tuna with vegetables. Okay, healthy food. For example, salad fruit. Exactly. Great job. Okay, so everybody, it is time to wrap up our class. It was nice to have all of you here with me today, and I hope to see you in my next class, which is tomorrow, if you want to come. Okay? All right, you guys, thank you so much. Have a good lunch, and I'll see you next time.